If you're listening to someone give financial advice, you would probably want to know if they're following the same advice that they give. The purpose of this video is to show you that I too am trying to follow these same exact rules, but doing so with less than $60,000 per year of income. Stay tuned. Welcome back to Financial Wellness Planning. My name is Derek Coffey, and I'm the founder of FWP. And if you're new to the channel, then this is episode 2 of a series that I plan on doing that goes over my own personal financial situation. And the purpose of these videos is to be transparent and to prove to you that the principles that I preach do actually work. As I stated in episode 1, I'm not here to brag about being able to live on $55,000 a year. I do have extenuating circumstances that allow me to live on such little income. I have an 800 square foot home that I bought in 2018 for $125,000. I don't have any car loans. I don't pay as much for groceries because I own a coffee shop and I eat the food that the coffee shop sells. I don't have to worry about childcare because my wife is a stay-at-home mom. So understand, this is not meant to be a brag about living on $55,000 a year. It's meant to show you that the information that I'm giving, I'm also trying to utilize in my life. The first thing that I want to show you are the FWP financial planning sheets, and I'm going to put a link to a free version of these sheets in the description of the video, so if you'd like to use them, feel free. But what I've laid out is a month of my wife and I's transactions. I did this in March, I've done it again in April, and I plan to do this every single month going forward. And the purpose of this is to act as an accountability tool for myself. If I know that I'm going to be laying out for you my personal finances, then it's going to make me think twice about spending money, especially on things that I probably shouldn't be spending money on. But the purpose of this sheet is to help me understand where our money went. I know where the money comes from. It comes from our business. But the main problem that people have is that they don't understand where their money is going. By laying out each transaction for the month of April, I'm able to get a very clear view of what our money was doing. All of that information is what's going to populate my financial dashboard. And what you're looking at on the screen is our financial dashboard as of April of 2024. What you'll notice is that all of our cash flow is laid out. Our cash flow for the month includes money that we received from our business. And after taxes, this amounted to $3,528 for the month. I also receive a small disability payment from Veterans Affairs. Don't worry, I didn't do anything cool or crazy to get it. I just threw my back out while I was in, and it does make life a little bit difficult sometimes. It's $170 that I receive every single month, and it helps pay bills. The next section is all about our needs-based spending. And this is going to include things like our mortgage, our utilities, our minimum debt payments. All of the things that we need to live are going to be laid out in this section. The next section is going to be our savings. Our savings currently is $500 a month, and this is an increase from March when I said that we were going to start contributing $500 a month to our Roth accounts. It's $250 for myself and $250 for my wife. And what you'll notice later on in this video is we're still shy of what we need to be putting away each month for our financial future, but $500 is a good start. The final section is our miscellaneous spending. And for the month of April, we did really well with our miscellaneous spending. We only spent $448. Now, if we break our spending down into the 70-15-15 system that I preach all the time, our savings was around $60 shy of where it should have been, but our miscellaneous spending for the month was $100 less than what we could have spent. Going back to our needs-based spending, we were over by quite a bit for the month of April. Ideally, our needs-based spending is going to be around 70% of our after-tax income. For the month of April, we were over 81. There were some things that contributed to this that were not necessarily out of the norm because we experienced them every single year or every quarter or every 6 months, but they all happened to hit in April. So one of the nice things about laying out a month of transactions is that you can go back and see where your money went. So in the month of April, we had a $69 trash bill, and this covers 3 months of trash pickup, but every 3 months we see this bill. It just so happened to hit in April. For the month, our grocery expenditure was a little bit higher than normal. Typically, we spend between $250 and $300, and the rest of the food that we eat either comes from the coffee shop or typically it comes from us going out to eat. Well, in the month of April, we scaled back on what we spent going out to eat. This created a little bit higher grocery bill than what we're typically accustomed to, and for the month of April, it ended up being about $215 more. And don't get me wrong, this sucks. I enjoy going to my favorite restaurants and enjoying a relaxing meal where I didn't have to cook it and I didn't have to clean up after it. But I do understand that by spending more time at home, spending more money on groceries, and cooking the meals that my family eats, not only is going to benefit us financially, but it should also help us from a health standpoint as well. In the month of April, we also spent a little bit more on life insurance than what we typically do. Every month, I come out of pocket around $103 for a $300,000 term policy that I have on myself. Every 6 months, I owe an additional $72 for a small whole life policy that I have. Now, this whole life policy is only $50,000, and it comes from a policy that my parents purchased for me back when I was 2 years old. And this is something I want to highlight for those that have younger children. If you're able to get a small whole life policy for your kids when they're younger, this is an expense that they can take over later in life, and the premium doesn't go up. So for me personally, my parents purchased a $25,000 whole life policy. With that policy came what's called a guaranteed insurability option. And what this did was it allowed me to purchase $25,000 of additional coverage, and I didn't have to go through any medical underwriting. If I were to try to purchase a $50,000 life insurance policy now, it would cost me an arm and a leg. I'm overweight. I'm 35 years old, I'm a nicotine user, so having that policy already in place allowed me to create $50,000 of protection for around $12 a month. So if you're a parent to young kids, look into this. It may be very beneficial to them later on in life. Also, while I was going through our month of transactions, I noticed that we were spending around $75 a month on our streaming options. Currently, we have Disney, Hulu, and ESPN all bundled together. We also have Sling TV and Peacock. Peacock's not going anywhere because that's how I watch golf. Disney certainly isn't going anywhere because that's the only way that we can get Bluey for my son. Sling TV can't go anywhere because we need Nick Jr. for Paw Patrol. But with Sling TV, we had the whole package. We had access to all of the channels that Sling had to offer. What I noticed is we weren't using over half of those channels. We were only watching a handful of them, and the most predominant one was Nick Jr. I went back to our Sling account and I cut off all of the channels that we weren't using. And this is going to reduce our monthly outlay for streaming by around $10 to $15 a month. So my hope is that next month we're going to have that additional $10 or $15 in our budget to either save more into our retirement accounts or to have to spend on the things that we want to do. Our current net worth is comprised of $5,000 in savings, which is meant to cover our basic emergency fund. And if you're new to the channel, a basic emergency fund, at least to me, is $1,000 per person in your household. There are 3 people in our household. We have $5,000 set aside. I'm happy with that. At the end of April, I had $16,703 in my Roth IRA. Now, this was a reduction from March, and that's mostly due to the fact that the stock market didn't have a very good month. My wife's account did pretty well for the month, considering what the overall market did, but there's still only about $25,000 in her account. So our total liquid assets as of April 2024 was $46,703. For our debt, we have roughly $60,000 on a piece of land that we purchased, and that costs us around $525 a month. It is at a 6% interest rate, but it's not something that I'm overly concerned with at the moment, especially because we plan to build later on. We still have just under $2,500 of medical debt from having our son. That costs us $128 a month, but there's no interest on that, so that's something I'm certainly not worried about getting rid of. We do have just under $113,000 left on our mortgage, so all of that added together brings our total liabilities to $175,000. Our total liquid net worth is negative $128,000. Now, I do have the business that I could factor in, but I don't feel comfortable putting a value on the business. Just like the home is worth something, but you don't get to recognize that until you sell it. So until I sell the business or I sell the home that we live in, I'm not going to include that in our net worth. The next page we're going to go over is the emergency fund estimator. Now, the free version of these sheets does not include the emergency fund estimator. If you're a member of the Financial Wellness Planning website, then you do have access to this sheet. But the purpose of this sheet is to help show you how much money you should probably have set aside for a rainy day. This questionnaire is going to be based around your job and your current career. The answers to these questions all evolve around your current situation. If you're older than age 50, then you're most likely going to need a little bit more money saved up in the event you're forced to retire early. If you're younger than age 50 and you're forced to leave your job, there's a fairly high probability you can find a job somewhere else. The next thing you need to consider is how stable or how in demand is your job. If your job isn't very stable and it's kind of low demand, if you get let go or you're not able to work there anymore, then you may not be able to find another position that's going to pay your bills. So having a little bit more money set aside is going to be important. And then we have to take into account your pay. If you get a steady, secure paycheck, like you work for the government or you work for a big institution, then your pay is probably steady and mostly secure. But if you're self-employed or you're a salesperson and you live on commissions, then your pay isn't as steady or as secure as someone who works for the government. So depending on how you answer these questions, this worksheet is designed to help you calculate what your true emergency fund should be. So the sheet calculates for us that we need 6 months of our net income set aside. If we take into account the amount of net income that we received in the month of April, our true emergency fund is just over $21,000. If we take away from that the $5,000 that we have set aside in our savings, our net deficit on our emergency fund is $16,169. This isn't something that I see as a priority at this moment. We do have money set aside within the business to help cover any additional expenses that we incur. So if there comes a point that we need to pull money for a personal expense or an emergency, there is money set aside for that. But it is something that we may revisit and start saving for outside of the business sometime in the future. And then the final sheet that we're going to go over is the income replacement estimator. And the purpose of this sheet is to help you understand how much money you need to set aside to hit your financial goals. When we talk about building your retirement nest egg, it's all about replacing income. If you anticipate carrying debt with you into retirement, then you want to replace 70% of your final gross pay. If you don't plan to take debt with you into retirement, then you may be able to get by with replacing just 50% of your final pay. The way we live, our goal is to replace 50% of our final pay. Currently, we bring in $55,000 a year. We're 34 years old, we have a target retirement age of 65, and we're going to anticipate a 3% pay increase each year until we retire. What this is going to equate to is a final salary of $137,500. If we want to replace 50% of that, we need to build a retirement portfolio that will create $68,700 per year in income. To figure out how big that nest egg needs to be, we're going to use the 4% rule. So if we take the $68,752 and we divide that by 4%, our retirement nest egg needs to be greater than $1.7 million. Depending on the rate of return that we receive, anywhere from 5% to 8%, you can see on this sheet what our required additional monthly savings would be. Now remember, we're already putting away $500 a month, but that's not going to be enough to hit that $1.7 million goal. Even at 8%, we need to contribute $355 additional dollars each month to our Roth accounts to hit that goal. We're not yet in a position that we can do that. It's actually going to require us to bring in more income, which we hope to do in the very near future. But as of right now, we do know that we're $355 behind on our retirement savings. Our financial situation is not perfect. There are still things that we need to work on. And from month to month, the amount of money we have left over is going to fluctuate. In the month of April, we spent more than we brought in. And that's okay. We have money set aside to help cover the months where we spend a little more than what we bring in. Hopefully in May, when there's 5 pay periods because we get paid every single week, that month should result in us spending less than what we brought in. But that's the importance of having money set aside and living as much within your means as you possibly can. Because we had that money set aside, we didn't have to go put that additional spending on a credit card. We were able to rely on the money that we had in our savings to get us through. But the only way to get to that position is to understand where your money is going. You can't begin building for your financial future unless you have a surplus of money coming in every single month. So using a program like this or using an app to track your spending and to keep it in check is what's going to help you find that additional cash flow to begin saving. Now again, this is not meant to be a brag on us being able to live on less than $60,000 a year. It's simply to prove to you that I am trying to practice exactly what I preach. Thank you so much for tuning in. If this video or any of the other videos that I put out is providing you value, then hit that subscribe button, like the video, comment on it. If there's someone that you know that's struggling with their own finances and they need a little bit of inspiration to get it together, then send this video to them, because then at least they know the dude in the camera is at least trying to do the exact same thing. I also want to thank you for being my accountability partner. Knowing that I'm putting this information out to the public and someone like you is going to watch it and potentially judge me keeps me accountable to achieving my financial goals. So thank you. But stay tuned to the channel. This is a series that I plan on doing every single month just to keep me accountable and hopefully inspire someone else to get a grasp on their own personal finance. I'll talk to you soon.